You've heard it before, turn on MFA and you're safe. But what if I told you that even with MFA, an attacker could steal your credentials and breach your account? It's called Adversary-in-the-Middle attack, or AiTM for short, and you also hear the term token theft, and it's one of the fastest growing attacks I'm seeing right now across Microsoft 365 tenants. In today's episode, I'm going to show you how it actually happens and how I design MFA deployments into 2026 to make sure this never happens to you. Be sure to stay to the end, as I'll also give you some bonus tips on conditional access policies for a defense in-depth approach. Meet Orion Financial, a mid-sized accounting firm that lives in Microsoft 365. They have MFA turned on across every account, text codes, authenticator prompts, the works. One morning, their finance manager gets an email that looks completely legit. He goes ahead and clicks on this link here to open the document that was shared with him, and he's asked to go ahead and sign into his account. He types in his email, puts in his password, and then is prompted to fulfill an MFA request with Authenticator. And then from there is actually redirected to the main page here for Office 365. Doesn't actually get redirected to that document that they clicked on. But here's the catch. He just signed into an attacker's proxy site. Let's rewind the tapes. Are you seeing anything unusual? What the heck is that? That isn't the Microsoft URL we know. The user doesn't know anything occurs, but behind the scenes, the attacker just got his credentials and session token. Over on the hacker's infrastructure here that they stood up, you can see here they logged the user signing in. They were able to grab their password, and then they were able to intercept their authorization tokens here. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab session 38 here, which is the session I just put in. So I put that into the text, and I got back this cookie path here that I'm going to go ahead and copy. And then I'm going to open up an incognito window in the browser. And from here, I'm going to use this plugin for an extension called StorageAce to go ahead and import the cookie that I have from that session. So now if I go to office.com, you'll notice I did not have to put any username or password or MFA prompt. And I'm signed in here as Nick Ross, who was the user that I just grabbed that token from. That's the dangerous world we're living in. That email we got looks exactly like an email coming from OneDrive. The crazy part is that email is easy to copy. Traditional MFA only protects the login event, not the session afterwards. And once that session token is hijacked, it's game over. So let's talk about how I'd enforce MFA in 2026 to protect against more sophisticated attacks step by step. The first step sounds obvious, but I still see it missed greatly across tenants today. Do you have conditional access set up across your customer environments enforcing MFA? Microsoft certainly made MFA enforcement confusing over the years between per user settings, security defaults, and now conditional access. But I see conditional access now as table stakes for security and enforcing security for identities in any environment. Here within the Intra Admin Center, the first policy you want to make sure you have in place is if you go under the Venture Portal into conditional access, and from within here, you'll click on policies. Bare minimum, you want to make sure you're enforcing MFA through conditional access, because otherwise I see a lot of people have holes, and this is a base layer of MFA protection. We'll get into phishing-resistant forms here in a minute that will protect against these sophisticated attacks. But this is something I also see as just a great way to make sure your entire account is covered, because 99% of all identity attacks can be prevented with MFA. As an example, so you at least want to make sure you have this policy in place that is enforcing MFA for all users. So with this policy, I already have one in place, but we're going to say all users are protected as part of this. In the exclusion section, you're going to exclude a break glass account that you can use in case you lose access at any time. It's a best practice as part of this. It is a best practice not to try to include any specific users that have logins that are tied to emails. So in this case, I'd want to remove this user as an example that isn't being enforced MFA as part of this, and make sure that break glass account that's in a secure location is stored here. Under target resources, we'll say all. And then you're not going to configure anything for network or conditions, but you're just going to say we're going to grant access, and then we're going to require multi-factor authentication. This is a bare one day zero item that you should have in every tenant, and we'll show you how to step up that MFA strength as we go throughout this video. Hey guys, just a quick note, if you're looking to get a little bit more automated and streamlined with your reporting for MFA across your customers, check out a tool that I built called CloudCapsule that does allow you to run a rapid scan of their environment. Within here, you can actually see all users that are not covered for MFA between the various ways you can enforce it within Microsoft. And it will also outline if they have both coverage and policy as well as registration. So I can click into any of these users here and go into an MFA tab to see exactly what types of MFA that they have covered. And we even have playbooks here that relate back to MFA adoption that gives you a proposal that you can actually share with your customers about the MFA and a roadmap that you can create for them to maybe get into more of these phishing resistant forms that we're going to be showcasing today. So if this looks interesting and you want to check it out, head over to cloudcapsule.io and book a demo with us today. Next here, we're going to transition into the MFA methods that you should be using and the ones that you should be disabling. SMS for MFA and email as a second factor should be dead within your tenant. They're more susceptible to common attacks like SIM swapping for SMS. And with your email, think about if you had all of your users in your organization leveraging their personal Gmails for that second factor and how easy those could be to get breached. That's what we want to lock down here within the environment, and then we'll move into the phishing resistant forms that'll give you the extra protections here as part of this. So within the Intra Admin Center here, we're going to go under the authentication method section here. This is going to be where you host all of your policies, and this is also where you see SMS. I already have it enabled set to false or no as part of this. So you can click into these and you can make sure that these go into an untoggled state to be turned off. But just be aware, if this is the only form that you have being applied right now, you don't want to create a massive disruption in the organization. So it's really good as part of this, if I actually go back to that main homepage, to take a look at the user registration details and understand what their default multi-factor authentication method is, so you can plan accordingly, not just turn these things off within the tenant so that they can't access their account anymore, or they're being prompted to set up another factor and it creates disruption and they may reach out to you with some support tickets or things like that. So both of these, email OTP as an example should also be toggled to no, and this is where it's also giving you that acknowledgement that I'm mentioning around making sure you don't disable or lock yourself out of the account. So I can go ahead and save that here. This isn't going to strip any of those methods off of the users, but it's not going to allow them to use that to be able to sign in as a multi-factor method. Next here, this is where we're really leveling up and moving into kind of how I would try to deploy MFA into 2026 on a broad scale across customers, which is using phishing-resistant MFA. So within here, you can actually set authentication strengths, and this is where you're going to try to set this, for executives or for high impact accounts. Maybe people in finance is a great example of people you'd want to protect. But ideally, you get this out to the broader user base as part of this as well too. So before we actually get into authentication strengths, real quick, back into policies here, you want to make sure that you can enable these, such as the passkey with FIDO2 as an example here. And this allows you to configure passkeys to be leveraged. The cool part is back in 2025 now, they've added support here so that you can use your iPhone or an Android phone instead of needing something like a YubiKey, which is something that you're not going to get adoption on most organizations, not just because of the overhead cost of YubiKeys, but because of the end user friction. This is a little bit better as part of this. I've done a whole video on that, so I'm not going to go through that in depth as part of this video. But just as you're going through this, you want to make sure that passkeys are enabled so that you have that as a form of method. But under the authentication strengths, this is where Microsoft gives you, this phishing resistant MFA, which is going to be able to leverage Windows Hello for Business, passkeys, or certificate-based authentication. And so I think Windows Hello for Business is one of the easiest methods to try to roll out, because likely users might be already using this to sign into their Windows device as part of this, and they might have an intra-joined or hyper-joined device, which is easily able to do and then sign into Microsoft as part of that. And that will actually break down that man-in-the-middle attack and these phishing attacks that we're seeing as part of that. Passkeys will do the same thing. It's just a little bit clunkier of an end user experience where they have to scan a QR code with their phone on their camera and then approve that with the passkey that's on their personal device, as an example. So once you have this built out, you could simply develop a new authentication strength which just says, hey, we're going to use passkeys, as an example. And if I actually just give this a name, we're to say passkey, I'll just say it's iPhone as an example, create that. So you notice we have this as well too. So if we go back into conditional access, I'm going to go ahead and create a new policy here. And I'm going to say require phishing resistant. My recommendation here as you phase the rollout potentially as part of this is to start with your administrators within the organization. Make sure that they're applied by going in and setting this policy here to select users and groups, and then the directory roles. So this is where you would define bare minimum, the global administrator role as part of this, And this also might be where you select other users, right? Like your executives that I talked about, or your CIS, or your finance members within the organization to try to protect, as an example. So let's say Bruce Banner was in charge of accounting, and he sends a lot of wires. He could be targeted to try to get phished as part of this. And his account getting compromised is much more severe than the average user because it deals with a lot of our financials. And so you can include, this as part of that, and then you would want to still exclude your break glass account as part of this policy. And what I would say is over time, you have the rollout in rings to groups of users potentially within the organization to get them stood up on this versus just doing the admins and the targeted users, the C-staff users or finance users as part of this. And with this, you'll do the same settings we did for MFA where we're saying all resources. And then we're going to say we're going to grant them here, but we're going to require an authentication strength. And this is where you see the phishing-resistant MFA, the custom phishing strength, the resistant strength that I created for the iPhone passkey. Takes some propagation time before you actually see it in here. So this would show up for me probably in like 10 minutes if I was patient enough. Just wanted to call that out though, because you guys might have been wondering why I'm not seeing that yet. But this is going to then require phishing-resistant MFA as part of that example, and then you would go ahead and turn this on. And again, if you're just doing it for admins to start, you can say that this is part of that process to go set that up as part of that flow. So once you have the phishing resistant method set up, this is an example. If we go replay that attack that we saw earlier with the Evil Jinx infrastructure, this is a user now trying to sign in. They're getting this prompt here for Authenticator if they try to sign in to the Evil Jinx infrastructure. Maybe they have that, so they try to go fulfill that. But our policy is going to redirect back to looking at the phishing resistant form in order to be able to sign in. And this is where they could use one of the three methods, the YubiKey or the iPhone or Windows Hello for Business. And when they go to do that, it's going to have me put in my PIN here and put in my YubiKey as an example. But this would work for Windows Hello for Business. And it says the security key doesn't look familiar. Please try a different one. And the user is actually not going to be even able to sign in. So one of those methods using the passkey, whether that's Windows Hello for Business or the YubiKey or the iPhone, with the passkey on it or an Android device, is going to be able to shut this attack down. Now, one of the other policies you can't forget about is the one to enforce MFA for guest users in the organization. It's very possible that you actually have your default setting to be all users included, which would encompass groups. So that's okay if you have them combined. I'm not saying it's a requirement to have them separate. I do like to enforce guest users separately because we also have considerations for service providers or trusted organizations that we can set up within an organization as part of this. But if I go back to conditional access policies here, I'll create a new policy and I'm going to say require MFA for guest. And within the user section here, you're going to do select users and groups, and we're going to say guest or external users. And here we're going to check off all these boxes here. I don't like to necessarily select the service provider users within here because of the CSP relationships that we have with GDAP, but you can, if you don't have that relationship stood up today. And then specific external Microsoft organizations you could select too if you have them uploaded into Entra. I'm not going to go through that completely here, but this is the main setting that you would target. You would say all resources. And by the way, not that it's necessary, but I do think it's a good practice to still exclude the break glass account in here. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and grant controls, but require multi-factor authentication. For guest users, not as necessary to do the authentication strength, but that should be part of your due diligence if you are working with a partner on a more long-term basis as well too. Okay, so lastly here, there's some additional conditional access policy tips that I want to give you. And a lot of you out there might be saying, hey, Nick, isn't there a new conditional access setting that's come out recently around token theft and around token protection? There certainly is. And I want to kind of debunk some of the various reports on that just because it's still pretty early in its inception. And it's basically requiring a device-bound token as far as the replay event. So this is hypothetically going to stop token theft. But in today's time, this is very limited to scope as far as what you can do. And specifically, I'm talking about here in the session controls, you can say that you require token protection for sign-in sessions. And this is really great, because this would actually prevent the replay event that we saw as part of that Evil Jinx event within there, and you could set it up as a conditional access policy. And as we'll see here in the documentation, when you go through this, there's some limitations. This is how, they document you set that up. And today it's limited to the resources that you can deploy it with. Under conditions, it's only going to apply to Windows devices, and under modern authentication clients, it says that we can only select mobile apps and desktop clients, meaning what I just showed you with the Evil Jinx attack here in the browser wouldn't actually be stopped by this policy. So I think that's a common point of confusion when we talk about that and thinking that this is universally going to stop those types of attacks. It is limited today, and you would configure those resources if I go ahead and select this. But then go into the target resources, and here you would say select specific resources, and I would say Exchange Online and SharePoint Online as part of this. And then under conditions, I would say device platforms. We're going to configure this, and we're going to say this is only for Windows. And then under the client apps here, we're going to configure this, and you can only select mobile apps and desktop clients as part of this. And then you're going to require that token protection, which fulfills these policies as well too. You don't actually have to select anything under the grant control. So it's a really cool technology, and hope they continue to expand that, to reduce the amount of capabilities. And I did a whole video on this policy specifically, actually, that I'll link within this post in the description as well too. And then the very last thing here, guys, that I wanted to talk about with you is just one more policy that's a good recommendation if you think, hey, it'd be really hard for us to get everybody into phishing-resistant MFA, but I do want to start helping to prevent those types of attacks. There's more policies that you can set up. I've showed this in other videos, but one of the policies I think is most readily achievable for most organizations is the require manage device as part of this. And so you would select your users and groups here that you'd want to scope. This would still, classify all resources. Be sure to exclude, that break glass account. And then under the conditions, you're going to filter for devices, and you're going to say exclude devices here that have a trust type equal to, and this is where you dictate intra-joined or hybrid joined based off of your environment as part of that. So you just want these devices to be enrolled, or you may even say that you want the device to be compliant if they're enrolled into Intune as an example. That could be its own, separate policy technically, because there's actually a grant control for that. But this one's, more achievable for the average organization, where at least you have the joined devices. And so we're going to say we're excluding this trust type as part of that, and then the grant controls, we're going to block access. So that I would actually prevent that attack as well too. I've showed that in other videos, but that's a really good one here if you don't think you can get every user under the FIDO2 or Passkey workflow just in the beginning, or at least if you're rolling that out to admins. With those policies, even the best tech stack falls if your strategy stops at the login screen. So building these layers, device trust, conditional access, and verified sessions, that's how you turn MFA from a checkbox into a defense system. So to recap here, ensure MFA is being applied to every account, leverage conditional access to make sure you don't have holes in MFA coverage across your user base, retire those old methods like SMS and voice MFA, use phishing-resistant methods for at least admins and execs, and then ideally everyone in the organization. Make that your goal for the next year, at least to get some of your clients proliferate with phishing-resistant MFA. And then don't forget the yes users, because MFA alone won't save you from a modern attack, but phishing-resistant plus context-aware access plus human awareness can stop Adversary-in-the-Middle cold. So if your MFA strategy hasn't changed over the last few years, it's time it evolves, because the attackers already have. Thanks guys, I'll see you next week.